This video is brought to you by my channel members. Join today and receive exclusive perks. Link in the description. Whenever people reminisce on Thomas the Tank Engine, more often than not, this is what they remember. The Sympathy theme song, the real steam, the insane practical crashes, the model train props on giant sets, the static faces with eyes that do 360s. This is where a lot of Thomas's charm came from, and is what we fans call the model series of Thomas. For 24 years, Thomas stayed true to this style until 2009. In 2009, Thomas and Friends switched to full CGI. Gone were the model train props and sets and all practical effects, and in came new CGI provided by the Canadian animation company Nitrogen Studios. Also came a new writing style that just wasn't the best.
Thomas felt terrible. Thomas felt terrible. Thomas felt terrible. Thomas felt terrible. Thomas felt terrible.
Alright, I get it!
As a result, fans have dubbed the Nitrogen era the worst era of Thomas. I, however, lie somewhere in between this debate. The Nitrogen era was formulaic and every episode used the same plot and 3 strikes formula, but I grew up with this era. I had the season 13 and 14 DVDs when I was little, and I also remember watching season 15 and 16 on Milkshake at the time. So while it is bad, this era is actually very nostalgic to me. I think that's why some people defend it. Not to mention the greatest Thomas movie ever is from this era. So today I wanted to nail down 5 episodes from this era. 5 episodes that stick out and I don't think are as bad as the rest, and also aren't as talked about as much. Also, I went through hell to make this video. I rewatched every Nitrogen era DVD I had to nail down the episodes. So without further ado, let's begin. Here are the top 5 best episodes from the Nitrogen era of Thomas and Friends. Number 5.
Happy birthday, sir.
This is probably the episode on the list that suffers the most from the 3 strikes formula, but it does have some good things in it. In this episode, it's the Fat Controller's birthday, and Edward and the Salty remember when he used to ride around in an open carriage, even with a black and white flashback showing a younger Sir Topham Hatt before he gained weight.
Even older than Edward.
He loved riding in that carriage. I remember his smile. It would light up the sky.
Already we see something good about this episode. I love the continuity of Edward being one of the first engines on Sodor. The Fat Controller orders Thomas to show Winston how to be a really useful engine. I also really like this bit where it's implied that the Fat Controller doesn't want to go shopping with his mother.
Shopping with Lady Hat and Dowager Hat.
Happy birthday, sir!
Thank you, Thomas.
That's really funny. Anyway, Winston wants to look for the open carriage and keeps wandering off, which annoys Thomas. This part of the episode is very sucky and repetitive, but it does end on a high note. They surprisingly find the carriage, like right in front of them. Seriously, how has no one noticed it before? Anyway, they fix it up and show the Fat Controller, and one of the most beautiful endings to a Nitrogen era episode ensues.
The Fat Controller couldn't believe his eyes.
Oh, my! I remember this. Every year on my birthday.
Happy birthday, sir!
The Fat Controller smiled.
What a marvellous surprise! Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Winston. I can see you both had a really useful day.
And that made Thomas and Winston happier than ever.
Nitrogen's animation got really good to the end of its run. I love the shots of the rundown carriage and the trees, and the flashback is also really cool. And despite how repetitive the narrative gets, I do like Winston's goal. It's a very admirable one, just trying to do a good deed and please his boss. Overall, the most repetitive and boring of the 5, but it does have some things that stand out. Definitely a worthy place on this list. Number 4.
Edward the Hero.
This is another episode that turns the Three Strikes formula on its head. In this episode, Edward is chosen to be the rescue engine for the day, which seems to be a reoccurring theme in season 15. Like in Stuck on You it's Thomas, in James the Rescue it's James, and in Edward the Hero it's Edward. Gorn puffs past pushing Rocky, which is so weird because Edward's the rescue engine, so why is Gorn pushing Rocky? Logic is completely thrown out the window in these episodes. After seeing this, Edward thinks he knows how to be a hero and goes on his way. Later, Edward sees Charlie looking sad in a siding. Now this is the part of the episode where the Three Strikes formula is turned on its head, because he has Edward help 3 people or engines instead of making 3 mistakes. However, Edward thinks he messed up and keeps putting himself down.
Oh dear, I wasn't strong, fast, or stern. I was just funny. When I'm with Harold, I must try harder to be a hero.
Now we get to the bit where the episode is repetitive, but it's alright this time because Edward isn't being an idiot or being out of character. You could actually feel sympathetic for him at times. As Edward travels back to Knapford, he passes all the people or engines he helped, and they keep calling him a hero, but Edward doesn't understand. The episode actually ends with Edward apologising to the Fat Controller instead of hiding his problems like characters in other episodes. However, the Fat Controller isn't cross with Edward and praises him.
You are a hero. Just being you.
Edward beamed from buffer to buffer. Just then, Harold flew in.
Come on, old chap! We have work to do!
Hooray for Edward!
And Edward the Hero smiled and smiled.
Overall, I do like this episode, but it's not great or anything, but it is better than any other episode in season 15. Definitely a worthy placement on this list. Number 3.
Double Trouble.
This is another episode that had a pretty inspired concept and, for the most part, executed it quite well. The plot is that it's the Fat Controller's birthday, again, and Thomas is sent to collect him. However, he's completely and utterly surprised when he sees the Fat Controller wearing a moustache. As they go on their way, the Fat Controller wants to keep stopping and do something fun, which makes Thomas late. Thomas doesn't want to ask Hat why he's being so strange because he doesn't want to look silly. Wow, how original. This is when the Three Strikes formula is turned on its head. Normally it's the engines who make the mistakes, but nope, not this time. Thomas is reminding Hat constantly that I need to get to the party. He knows he has a job to do, it's just his passenger that is slowing him down. Later, Thomas finds out that the other Fat Controller and Lady Hat have gone with Bertie.
If the Fat Controller is on Bertie, then who is on board Annie?
Thomas asks why his passenger is being so strange, only to find out that it is his brother called Sir Lowham Hat who's on board Annie. And one of the best scenes from season 13 follows.
Controller's brother stepped down from Annie. The Fat Controller sighed.
Oh no, Lowham. Have you been up to your old tricks again? Absolutely right, Topham. I've been having a wonderful time with Thomas.
The Fat Controller didn't think this was funny at all.
Lowham, you have caused confusion and delay. We must hurry.
After this, Thomas goes back and puts everything right, and the Fat Controller is happy, I guess. This episode was such a surprise when I rewatched it for this video. Not only when the CGI series has a good concept, it executes it poorly. Nope, not this time. Overall, this episode isn't great. It does get very repetitive in the middle. It does have an inspired concept and a story that was executed well, and also has Thomas act responsible instead of making 3 mistakes. A worthy placement on this list, and one that you should definitely check out. Number 2.
Percy and the Calliope.
This episode is so nostalgic to me. Every time I hear the opening score to this episode in a different one, I always think of Percy and the Calliope. The plot is that Percy and Diesel are taking scrap to the scrapyard, and they pick up something from the Duke and Duchess.
What is it, Mom?
It is a calliope. A calliope is an organ that played music at summer fairs years ago.
Percy wants the Calliope to be saved from scrap, but Diesel keeps putting him down about it. Like all the episodes on the list, this part is very sucky and repetitive, and the attempts are very stupid. Did you really think putting coal in the damn thing would make it work? And I cannot believe the Calliope was still in one piece after falling off a moving train, but still, Percy's efforts here are pretty understandable. The episode ends on a high note with Percy managing to get it to work, fix it up, and with one of the best endings to a Night Era episode.
Percy fired his furnace, bubbled his boiler, and shot steam into the Calliope. It was the sweetest sound on Sodor.
I love this episode. It feels so classic Thomas to me. The theme of once old and lost, but found and made new again, was very prominent in the classic series, and to see it in the CGI form is really cool. Just for that, he deserves to be in the number 2 spot. Also, see if you can recognise the tune the Calliope plays. Any ideas?
Steam shot into the organ. The Calliope let out a rasp and a pop and a wheeze. But then, with a cough and a splutter, it began to play. Percy beamed from buffer to buffer. Then, the Fat Controller arrived.
Percy, what is making that music?
It's the Calliope, sir. We were told to take it to the smelter's yard, but I got it to work.
Number 1.
Jitters and japes.
I know I'm just as surprised as you were that a season 14 episode would make it as the number 1 spot. I never see people talk about this one, and it's clear why. Like the rest, it is very repetitive in the middle, but also like the rest, it has some good things in it. The plot is that Thomas is tasked with taking Dowager Hat to Misty Island. With him being young, he doesn't know what to do for her, so he asks Toby for advice.
You're an older engine, Toby. What would you find fun to do on Misty Island?
Toby thought and thought, as older engines like to do.
I would like to puff slowly. I would like to rest my rods and let my wheels whir gently. I would like to stop, smile, and see the sights.
I like the concept. The pairing of Thomas and Dowager Hat is really cool and something the show never did before. Anyway, DH doesn't like what Thomas is doing. And again, this part is very repetitive and boring. After the third strike, Thomas asks Dowager Hat what she wanted to do.
You said you had a plan. Why didn't you ask me what my plan was?
Thomas felt silly.
I'm sorry, Dowager Hat. I thought I knew what you would think was fun.
Well, you didn't. I wanted thrills and spills, jokes and japes, jitters and flitters. That would be fun.
Thomas was puzzled.
I don't know what any of those things are.
I love this episode for utilising the fact that Thomas is a train and won't understand human concepts. The show doesn't do this that often. But after going fast, Hat likes it, and Thomas now knows how to give her a good time. It ends with them having a good time and the Fat Controller praising Thomas, a very common ending to this era. Now, really, this episode doesn't deserve to be this high on the list. But what does this episode for me is that Misty Island is barely relevant in the plot. Think about it, every time some characters are normally on Misty Island, they always meet the Logging Locos, and as we all know, they're the most annoying characters in the show.
That's right.
Every episode on Misty Island has them appear.
Jumping Joby Wood. Merry Misty Island.
happy hero. Let it snow.
Stop that bus. Tree trouble. Old Wheezy Wobbles. The Christmas Tree Express.
So to have an episode where the Logging Locals and Misty Island aren't relevant to the plot at all is really nice. Overall, this episode is good. It's not bad, but it's not great either. The character pairing is fun. I like how Misty Island or the Logging Locals aren't relevant to the plot at all. And I like it for the fact that it utilises Thomas as a train and won't understand human concepts. But at the same time, it is a typical Three Strikes formula plot and what you'd expect from this era. But it is not terrible. It's right on the line of good and great. But it's one you should definitely check out. And there you have it, folks. 5 episodes from the Nitrogen era that I think are pretty good. Remember, this is just my opinion, so go and watch these episodes and form your own opinions. Let me know your thoughts on them in the comments. After rewatching most of the Nitrogen era, I've realised how much I missed that time with Thomas. In this time, Thomas was one of the hottest kids brands around. There was quality merchandise, a theme park, and a new movie was being made every year. And while the writing department obviously didn't care, everyone in every other department did, and I can appreciate their efforts. And seeing what the show's become now makes me think that we were too hard on the Nitrogen era. But hey, that's just me. Anyway, thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe and ring the bell. If you want to support this channel financially, check out my channel memberships, and a big thank you to everyone who already has, especially my Steam Engine members. Your support help makes this channel possible. I'll see you all in the next one. This is Jay's Train signing off until next time. Bye!